Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today we are doing a movie discussion, and I decided to switch it up a little bit because I feel like I've been mainly talking about pretty much like current movies, things that have came out within the last like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years, which is fun. I enjoy doing that. I think it's really cool. But today we're going to be talking about a little movie that came out 25 years ago. You might have heard of it, you might not have. It's called Titanic. You guys can let me know if you've heard of it, if you've watched it. um, and I thought it would be fun to revisit this movie because it actually is the 25th anniversary. They re-released it in theaters last month. I think they sort of kind of did that for Valentine's Day as well, and they re-released it in a master version, and then I think they might have even done 3D as well. And I think it's still in theaters. If you guys want to check it out, maybe look into your local theaters to see if you can get a ticket to go and see it. Now, I didn't see it in theaters, but um, they were doing some pretty good, publicity for it and advertising for it. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, this movie is so huge, arguably one of the best movies that has ever, been made, one of the best love stories that we've ever seen in a film. And so for them to bring it back to theaters, for people that obviously like, never got to see it, or people like me who was too little to go see it, or maybe for people that weren't born or anything like that, I thought that was kind of a cool thing that they did that. Um, and I think it might have been James Cameron's idea, who was the director of Titanic, and he's directed, a bunch of big films. He's done Avatar movies as well, and I think Avatar has been like the only movie that really surpassed Titanic, which is crazy because it's like he did both. Um, and so, yeah, and then, and I kind of wanted to do this too because I recently had a conversation with an online friend who was telling me that she had went to go see Titanic for the first time. She had never saw the movie in full, and I was telling her like, I'm pretty sure you're gonna like it because I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that they watched Titanic and they hated the movie or disliked it. Now I know a lot of us don't really love the outcome of the movie, or maybe the certain parts that we wish were different, but I think overall, like, I think we all kind of agree that it's like a really good story. um and so, yeah, and so it's kind of crazy that like this movie has been around for a while, and it's so popular, like it's really ingrained in pop culture at this point, and there's still like so many people who haven't seen it or haven't seen it in full. And by the way, this is not me judging because I really did not watch the movie in full until maybe like a few years ago. I was an adult when I first watched it. I didn't grow up watching it. I had obviously heard of it, and I would see it sometimes that it was on TV. But then I was like, hold on, this movie is like over 3 hours. To me, especially back then, I was like, that's super long for a movie. So I think that partly that might have been why I never really dived into it, because I was kind of just like, do I really want to stay here for like 3.5 hours and watch a movie? But it's really good, and I think um, that time making it that long really gave the audience time to kind of like know the characters and to really like flesh out the whole story instead of rushing everything. And I think it made sense too, because the story, although it is a romance, but there's also drama, and it's also like, this doom at the end of it. And I think making it that long really like built up to that, to the ending. And I think it made it better, to be honest. So I kind of understand why the movie was so long now that I've seen it a couple times. Um, but yeah, so we're gonna be talking about Titanic, and of course, I want to hear your guys' comments. Because, like I said, it's such a big like mainstream movie now, and I mean, I guess it was when it came out, but I feel like now that so much time has passed, people still look back on it and they go like, "Wow, that movie is like really great," and you can't help but like tear up and stuff, and it's just one of those movies, you know what I mean? Um, and so I'd love to hear like what you guys think of the movie as a whole, and maybe like, do you remember the first time watching it and how it made you feel and all that good stuff? Leave comments down below. I'd love to hear people's opinions about the topics and the movies that I discuss as well. Um, and let me know if you went to the theaters to go and see it. Did you go and celebrate the 25th anniversary? Um, I kind of wish maybe I would have done it just to kind of experience on the big screen and maybe even to see it. I mean, I don't know if I'd want to see it in 3D just because like we all know it happens at the end and just I don't know if I'd want to see that in 3D, but I feel like just to be able to see it in theaters and see it on the big screen and kind of like have that first time feel experience, even though it wouldn't be my first time, it would probably kind of feel like it seeing it. But, I didn't go see it. I guess because I'm trying to save my coins for other new movies that I know are coming out that I really want to see. And I'll definitely be doing reviews and discussions for those movies as well going forward. The next big one is going to be Scream 6 that's coming out March 10th, and I already got my ticket, so I'm going to be talking about that after I go and see that. So that should be a good one. But yeah, like I said, let me know. Hit me up on all the socials and make sure you guys follow me to keep updated with any new podcast episodes or any updates, any new information that I have for you guys. I really appreciate all the support and anybody that comments or watches or gives me a like or anything like that. I really do appreciate it. But anyway, let's go into the movie. So I think part of what makes this movie so impactful and why it hits the feels, why it's so emotional, is because it's partly based off of a true story. I feel like most people know this or I've heard about this, but I did kind of want to mention like I guess the historical part of it as well. Now, obviously, like, I don't think there really was a Rose or a Jack on the Titanic, and I really don't think there was this big love story or this whole big love thing going on the night of the Titanic or, the people that were on there. But, the ship really did sink. It happened in, I believe, April of 1912. And the ship was leaving from Southampton, England, and boarding and going to New York City. So, the ship was full of like upperclassmen and, people that had money, basically. Um, and then you have people too that were in different, I guess, different social classes, and they really touch on that in the film as well, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, it was filled with people who had money and everything like that, and I'm sure nobody going into that ever thought that that ship would sink and that things would end the way that they did. So I think just knowing that and then watching the film as well is like really like dang, like especially the part where they actually show the ship splitting in half and everything just sinking and people just like falling off. Like it's crazy, you guys. Like the movie is really like it seriously like hits the feels. I mean, if you watch that with like no emotion, something's wrong with you because it's really tragic. um Now, obviously, like I said, I'm revisiting a film that came out 25 years ago, so I'm going to be talking about what happens in the film. Usually, when I talk about newer movies, I try to do non spoiler talk in the beginning and then I go into more details, but I'm just going to be talking about the movie, like, freely. So if you have not seen the film, and you don't want to be spoiled, then obviously click out of this and come back to it later. You can always catch up on my episodes or any episodes that you missed on my YouTube page, on my Facebook page. And then sometimes I post clips on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok. So again, follow me on there if you're not. And yeah, so just letting you guys know that this is full of spoilers if you haven't seen it and you're one of those people that does not want to be spoiled. But at this point, you probably kind of already know what happens because, like I said, it's just such a big thing in pop culture, and there's been like so many like references to Titanic and so many jokes and all that kind of stuff that I feel like most people kind of know like what happens or at least like I guess the big thing in the movie, which is the boat sinking and so many people dying and everything like that. But yeah, I think it's crazy that James Cameron, kind of took that story, and I think it was said that he kind of went into it because he was so fascinated with shipwrecks. I don't know if it was so much that story and I don't know if it was so much that he really wanted to tell that specific story, but I think it started off with him just being fascinated with shipwrecks and then maybe like him kind of discovering the whole thing about Titanic and what's crazy too, I was kind of reading up on it. Like I'm not an expert. I really don't know like all of the details of what really happened, but I know that like I believe parts of the ship or maybe like the entire ship is still like at the bottom, like towards the bottom of the ocean. And I think researchers and people have, gone to see if they could salvage anything. But I think at this point, if they tried to take pieces of it and bring it on land, it would probably fall apart because it's been down there for so long, and it's just like completely destroyed. So I think from what I've read, I think they said the best thing is just to kind of just leave it where it is and to leave it alone. So that's just kind of like crazy and sad and eerie to think that like it's still just sitting there and it'll always just be there. Like, I mean, I guess it'll eventually fully rot away, but the fact that it's still there, like even all this time, um, yeah, it's just something kind of eerie about that. I don't know if I said that the ship sunk in 1912, so it's been quite a long time since that happened. Um, and yeah, and it like I said, it's just crazy to think that maybe you don't, I mean, we never really know like what is really down there and what was a part of the ship and everything. I mean, I guess I feel like if there was something really valuable like jewelry or something like that, then they probably would try to get it because you know how people are. They, if they could find anything to make money off of or to auction, they'll do it. But yeah, I think for the most part, as far as them trying to like touch the actual ship or get pieces of it or anything, it's like, probably best not to do because then you wouldn't really even be able to like have anything of it because it would just fall apart. It's just completely dilapidated at this point. Um so yeah, so circling back to my point about how like I think that's why the movie is so impactful, aside from the romance, just the fact that we know that some of this, or I guess part of it, actually really did happen and people really did lose their lives. It's said that about 1,500 people died. I think it could have been more, and I think there was, I'm sure there was like kids and maybe even babies on board as well. So that's horrible to think about. Um, and I don't even think they had enough life jackets for people. And then I guess there's a part too where it's like, even if they did have that, would they have survived? Because the water was lit, was just so cold that even if you did have a life jacket, if you're laying or sitting in the water for that long, like most people, wouldn't be able to handle that. They said that the water was supposedly 28 degrees, which is like insanely cold for anybody to be sitting in water for hours for that long. And you have to think they're in the middle of the ocean, you guys. This isn't just like, like some random beach or something. This is like dead middle in the ocean, and that would be really scary. And I think they showed that in the movie really really well, just how like frightening that would be. And I'm one of those people that really loves water, like I'm not the best swimmer, but I love the idea of being at the beach or being in the ocean or around the ocean or just being near water. But the idea of just being in the middle of the ocean, and it's just, imagine it being like pitch black and you're just floating and there's like nobody. I mean, everybody from the boat is either like dead or like frozen or has drowned or anything. Like that's horrible. Like that is frightening, so I think they showed all of that really really well, and it kind of made you think of how those people felt like when they actually did sink, when the boat actually really did, or I should say the ship actually went down, and they knew, at that point it's like there's literally nothing else I can do. There's nothing for me to really like grab onto or anything that can really save me except for maybe a life jacket, maybe pieces of the ship. But other than that, they had to wait for people to come and rescue them. And by the time, um, like how they showed in the movie, by the time they came, it was like a lot of people had died already. And it's not their fault, but it's just like, Jesus. Um, so yeah, really like, I know you're probably like, way to bring down the mood, Tiffany, but it's true though. Like if you watch the movie, you know how sad that part is, but aside from some other things that happen as well. But I think that part in particular is just like, it's just really horrible to think about anybody going through something like that. And like I said, knowing that there was really nothing that they could do. Um, really, really sad. So I wanted to hold on. Why is my camera? I'm sorry. Let me fix this really quickly. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Having a little technical issues there. But so yeah, so the movie definitely like was big, I guess, when it came out. It won all these awards the following year, like Academy Award for Best Directing, Best Picture, best score. Oh, that was another thing I wanted to touch on. So the movie score is actually really beautiful. I was actually just listening to it before I started this podcast. It's on Spotify if anybody wants to listen to it. It's like over 4 hours, the whole thing. I've never listened to it in full, but I think most of us have heard, My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. That was obviously like the big love song from the movie. And I believe it's the only song on the soundtrack with lyrics. I could be wrong, but most of the music is just simply music. It's just a score. And it was composed by James Horner. And like when I looked that up, I was like, why does that name sound familiar? You guys, he composed the soundtrack for Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. What? Now, completely different movie, completely different like vibes, themes going on, but I love that soundtrack. If anybody knows me, you guys know how much I love The Grinch. Like literally my favorite Christmas movie. I watch it every year, and I listen to the soundtrack on Spotify like as my Christmas playlist. So to know that he did that as well, I'm like, dude, he's brilliant. Like he does really good work. And then it was sad because I found out he passed away in 2015. So I was like, oh, like it's sad to think that we'll never hear him score another film again. But he definitely left his mark because those two soundtracks alone are like really really good. Um, and so yeah, James Cameron definitely has some top tier people a part of this movie. Obviously, we know Leonardo DiCaprio as Jack, and then Kate Winslet as Rose. Even Kathy Bates is in the movie. I forgot what her character's name is, but she's one of the characters that we see throughout the film. And pretty much, I guess, for anybody maybe that hasn't seen it or doesn't really know the full story or the love story part of it. It's about 17-year-old girl named Rose, who is on board the Titanic with her mom Ruth and then her fiance Cal. And I believe they were traveling to the United States because they were trying to get ready for like a wedding, I think for her wedding or something like that. And basically, sorry, the cat's in the background. Basically, she does not love her fiance. She does not want to be with this man. Really, the only reason is because of status, because of wealth. And you have to remember this was set, in the early 1900s, so completely different time. And back then, it was kind of like, your job as a woman was to like marry well and to have kids and do stuff around the house basically. So her mom is like really the one that's set on her marrying this man, and it's kind of just like, if we want to keep up this lifestyle, this wealthy lifestyle, if you want to have money, if you want to have these things, you need to be with this man because this man comes from money. Now, I'm not sure what the background is as to why they have financial issues. They probably do say it in the movie, or her mom probably says it, but basically, like her mom is kind of like pushing her towards this man. By the way, Cal is like 30 and Rose is like 17, which is ill, by the way. Um, and again, I know it's a different time, but it's just like, girl, like, why would you be pushing your daughter onto somebody like that old? Anyway, um, so she's not happy. She's like pretty much her whole life is being controlled either by her mom or by Cal, because Cal is kind of, I would say he's kind of like abusive or like borderline abusive and controlling. Now, it's not like he's going around hitting her all the time, but he clearly wants her to do what he wants her to do type of thing. And since he's the one that has the money and he's the man, he's kind of the one in control, then she kind of has to follow his lead. And she, like she's a teenager, and as a teenager, you want to like be free and do what you want to do and make your own choices and all that kind of stuff. And she doesn't have that luxury. Now she has everything else. She has the gowns, she has the man, she has access to money and all these different things, but she doesn't have her freedom, which is clearly the most important thing to her. And then here comes Jack, and Jack is like the complete opposite. He's this poor artist who happens to win a ticket to board the RMS Titanic. I think he wins it in a poker game. So him and his friend they come on board last minute, which is so sad because it's like, dude, if you had never got on there, you wouldn't have died. But then again, if he didn't get on there, he wouldn't have met Rose and all that kind of stuff. So, um, but he gets on at the last minute, and like I said, since he's poor, they're in a completely different social class, and that's one of the themes that this movie really touches on, like classism and everything, and the way people the way people treat each other, like when you don't have money or if you do and all that kind of stuff. And um he comes on board and he's just happy to be there. Like he's just young and free and wild and kind of not wild in a bad way, but just like, he clearly doesn't really care like what other people think. Now he starts to care what Rose thinks because he likes her, but um he's one of those people that kind of just does whatever feels right to him. And so they meet, and I think initially Rose maybe is a little bit annoyed by him, or she's kind of just like, why are you all up in my face? Like, why are you all up on me, boy? Like, I got a fiance. And clearly, like, you can tell she starts to like him too, but it's that thing of like, I shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. I'm not, we're not supposed to be hanging around each other. Like, you're down here, I'm up here type of thing. And I don't think it's that she's snotty or anything like that. It's just kind of like the life that she lives and what she's been taught. And I'm sure she kind of would have still felt that way even if she wasn't engaged because of her mom and everything like that. So, um, but clearly she's much more like humble than her mom is. And yeah, and it's kind of like this cat and mouse game for a little bit. And clearly, like I said, clearly she likes him, but she's trying to push him away and, saying that they shouldn't be around each other and maybe they should just like not speak and all this kind of stuff. But it's like, girl, you like him. You might as well talk to him. You might as well just be friends with him or whatever. But as you can, I guess if you haven't seen the movie, they do end up together and they do fall for each other. And um Cal is not happy about that. Ruth, her mom, is not happy about that. And I think the people that even the people that don't like personally know him, like the people that just are like upperclassmen and stuff, they see that and they're like, girl, like, why are you with him? He ain't got no money. He's like I mean, he's an artist. He's a really good artist, but he's not, making anything from it. And he's pretty much just like, I guess he's kind of just, I don't want to say a traveler, but kind of just jumping from place to place. Like, I don't even know if he really has a home. I don't remember if that's mentioned in the movie or why he wanted to get on the Titanic. I don't know. Maybe it was kind of for his friend as well, because his friend tags along with him. I don't remember why they really wanted to go to the states, but maybe he just wanted to go back home. I don't know, but yeah. So clearly, there's a ton of judgment and everything, and um, eventually it gets to the point where it's just like, I don't care. Like, I love this man, want to be with him, don't want to be with Cal. He's no good, and then it's like when they reach that point of like, oh, they're gonna be together, and then that's when the ship hits an iceberg and things just go straight to hell. And it's like, oh my god, like seriously. um and so yeah, and they, when the after the ship hits the iceberg, which is said to, I think that's what they said actually happened in real life. That was why or I guess a big reason why the Titanic went down was because I don't know what the actual name is, like the person that's like steering the boat away. I guess they didn't see the iceberg until like the last minute, and they tried to turn the boat. And I keep saying boat, I should say ship, because it's not like some little boat. Like this was like the biggest ship that they had made at that time. Um, Tried to turn the ship, and I guess it hit it, or they didn't turn it in time, and that pretty much like messed up the exterior. And it kind of, I don't know like what all the technical terms are, but if you watch the movie, then you kind of see how damaged the ship was even before it fully sunk and stuff like that, and how they were trying to salvage like every little piece of it, but it was just like it was too much. And obviously, they weren't anticipating that, so it's really sad. But yeah, it's like it's horrible, because it's like as soon as they finally both decide that they're in this together and they really want to be with each other despite what anybody thinks, and she knows like, I'm not marrying Cal, like I would rather be with you even if you're poor, that kind of thing. Then that happens, and it's like they can't even focus on just being with each other, and now it's like, okay, this is a life or death situation, and we might die and we might not come out of this. And the only thing we could try to do now is just be with each other for as long as possible, and hope, for some miracle or something like that. And it's just horrible, because it's like I said, it's like that was like happening modern day to any one of us. We would just be like, literally, like there's nothing for us to do. And that's a really scary feeling, to know that you can't really do anything but just kind of accept fate, basically. So um in the end, like rewatching it, I feel like Jack sort of like sacrificed himself. Like I don't think he necessarily went into it going like 100% sure that he was going to die, but I think he knew that there was a good chance that he could, and I felt like he was kind of just like, if it's between me and her, like I would rather her live because he just loved her so much. Makes me sad. Um and and then even when he's like, even before he dies, when they're floating in the water, and and there's like a whole big debate about whether or not Rose could have actually saved Jack, and I'll get to that too. But when they're floating in the water, I think one of the last things he says to her is like, promise me that like you'll pretty much like you'll go on and live your life and be happy and do the things that you wanted to do, because he could see, how much her mom and Cal and everything, how much they were holding her down and how much she was holding herself down, because of what other people would think and all that kind of stuff, and trying to follow social norms, and playing into gender roles and all that stuff, and that was a really big deal at the time. So um, that was like a really, just really sweet thing for him to tell her, that to just be like, to just go and like live your life, girl, like don't let anybody hold you back or hold you down. And that's essentially what she ended up doing, even after he died. um she went on to, marry someone else and had kids and everything like that, and her kids had kids and that kind of thing. And it's pretty much like the whole movie is like an older Rose telling the story of what happened on the Titanic and how she fell in love with Jack and everything like that. And she's telling this to her granddaughter, and I think it's like a team of like researchers, because I believe the movie starts off with them kind of like finding pieces of the Titanic, and I think, and then it goes back to the necklace, that there was this really pretty necklace called like the Heart of the Ocean is what they called it. um and it was, I believe it was something that Cal had given her, or I think he initially gave it to her, and then she, like once she kind of knew that for sure that she was going to marry him and everything, she gave it back to him. And then in the end, when she's rescued and everything, she has Cal's jacket and the necklace is in there. So she's, had possession of it all these years. And I think that's what prompts them to ask Rose, like an older Rose, like, well, hey, like, how did you get this? And what the heck happened? Like, tell us what happened. Cause she had never really like spoken about it. And that part to me was so, so sad. Like, not just the fact that she actually went through that at a young age, cause like anybody would be traumatized, but the fact that she couldn't, or felt like she could never talk about what really happened. And she even says in the movie, like, I didn't even tell, she's talking to her granddaughter. She's like, I didn't even tell, your grandfather what happened, meaning like her husband. I didn't even tell him that about Jack and about what happened between us and everything like that. So she's just been holding this in like for years, like all the way from 17 up until I think she might be like in her 80s or 90s, when she's telling the story. And it's like holding all of that in, like that's so sad. Like that to me is one of the saddest things, to be honest. Um, I can imagine like going through something like that and just never really talking about it. Now, maybe she talked about like, oh, I was one of the people on the Titanic, but she never mentioned Jack, and she never mentioned, that this man like saved her life, sacrificed himself for her. So, um, just tragedy all around. But like I said, it's still a really great movie, and if you have not seen it, or if you haven't seen it in full, I do recommend watching it. It's definitely one of those like timeless movies, and one of those movies that like I think people will still be talking about 20, 30 years later, and they'll still be celebrating it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's one of those movies. It definitely hits you in the feels for sure. But before I move on, I did want to remind you guys that my podcast is sponsored by Stream Media. So thank you to Stream Media for sponsoring the podcast. I'm able to go live with you guys every week through the Stream Studio, and that's currently what I'm using right now. That's what you see me on and what you see me using every week. So if you are interested, you could go to studio.stream.com and check it out for yourself. It's free for anybody to use. All you need is an email, and then they give you a login code, and you're good to go. Um, and then you could kind of go in and mess around and see maybe like what kind of content you want to film. And um, the great thing about it is they make it easy, because once I finish recording, it pretty much saves the recording for me, so that way I'm able to upload to like YouTube and Spotify and any other social site that I want to. So yeah, it's really cool to use, and let me know if you guys use it or if you like it. Let Stream Media know that you're using their software, just so they can get the feedback that they need and everything like that. um, but yeah, so there's what's crazy is there is a where I'm at, I'm in Vegas. There is a Titanic exhibit here, and I think it was like last summer or something like that. I was looking up, just kind of like things to do or places to go to explore, and that came up. And at the time, I was kind of like, oh, that could be cool. And then I was looking up reviews, and people were just like, oh, it's okay, like it's really not that great. And so that I never went, but now I'm kind of like, maybe I should go just to kind of see like what it is, like how they have it set up. I don't think it's like a huge thing, but it's something, I guess. I've never been to it. Again, if you guys know what I'm talking about or if you experienced it, let me know. um but yeah, maybe I'll check it out one day and stuff like that, and see if it's, or see if they've even redone anything since the 25th anniversary, has passed and they re-released the movie. Maybe they got some new stuff in there. I don't know. I really don't know how they have it set up, but now I'm kind of like, oh, maybe it would be interesting just to go and check it out. I don't know. Um, and what was I gonna say? Oh, so the other crazy fact that I learned about the movie was that um, the budget for this movie was like $200 million, maybe even over that, which was what the I think the biggest budget for a movie at the time in 1997. So yeah, they put in like all the stops for this movie, the cast, the film score, the budget for the production and everything. And I did just kind of want to give a shout out to like everybody that worked on the movie. I'm saying this as if people are they're gonna see this, but hey, you never know. Just anybody that was like a part of the visual effects people, like thinking, and I know it's like 1997 wasn't like that long ago, but just considering how much technology has advanced and the way, the way they're able to do movies now with CGI and everything. Like if you watch Titanic, especially like remastered version of it, you're like, this is really good visual effects. Like the people that made the sets and the productions, stages and all that kind of stuff, like they did a really, really good job. And the editors and all that kind of stuff, like you watch and it looks really real. Like when especially, and I keep going back to the scene because it's so like, it's just such a like, crazy, like scary scene. Like I have that image branded in my head when the ship actually snaps in half, and um there's people up here, up top, trying to hold on. I think that's where Jack and Rose were at the time, and there's people on the other half, and it just like crashes violently into the water, and everybody's like falling off. Like that is crazy, you guys. Like that's so scary. Like I don't know for sure, obviously, if that's how the Titanic really went down. I don't know if it was just a full motion thing, or if it did split in half, or if it kind of crumbled like into sections and stuff. But either way, like scary. But just the way they show it in the film is like really, really realistic, I would say. So I did want to like give props to everybody, not just the director or the cast, but people that were working on it behind the scenes, and people that really just made the visuals for it, because they did a fantastic job, I think so. um and yeah, so let me know like what you guys think about Titanic, how you feel about it. And really, before I wrap this up, I have to talk about the big debate of this movie, the biggest debate of this movie, that has been going on probably like since the movie came out. And Kiki Palmer is like known for talking about this, and it's so funny. And she's super funny. She was on the Steve Harvey show talking about it, and I think she said it in other interviews as well. But she brought up the point of like, why didn't Rose save Jack? So again, let me explain for people who haven't seen, or if you've never seen like the end scene. So at this point, has the ship has split in half, and most people have either like jumped off or they've slipped off, or people are like all in the water, and everybody's like either drowning or trying to hold on to pieces of the ship that has fallen off. And Rose and Jackson, when they fall in the water, they're holding hands, and I think Jack tells her. I think it's Jack that tells her, or maybe it's no, I think it's Jack that says to hold on to me, like no matter what, just hold on to my hand. And like by the time they make it in the water, that's kind of hard to do because water is powerful. And as far as they have to like drop is like really insane. Anyway, so they're in the water at this point, and Rose has a life jacket on, but Jack doesn't. And there are like pieces of the ship floating in the water. And so people are trying to like find something to hold on to for the people that don't have life jackets because I don't think there was enough for everybody, Like I said, because of the different social classes on the Titanic, the people that had money, of course, they got the life jackets and the little rescue ships for they got access to that first, unfortunately. So there was some people that did make it off in the film, like Rose's mom was on one of those boats and she was trying to get Rose to come on, and Rose was like, I'm not going without Jack. Like, this is my man. You tell me to leave him behind? Like, are you crazy, lady? That's how you know they was really about each other, because that was like the ultimate sacrifice. Anyway, so there's a piece of, I don't know if it's like a door frame, but it's like this thick kind of like wooden piece that's floating in the water, and Jack helps Rose to get on in. So she's floating and he's just like hanging on kind of like to the edge, and they're facing each other. And so many people have said, why didn't Rose like make room for him to get on so they both could have been floating? Or why didn't like they take turns, all this stuff of like, Rose should have did this, Rose should have did that. And at first I was kind of like, yeah, it is messed up that like she was the one on the thing and he just had to sit in the water, and that's why he died, because he had, I'm pretty sure he got hypothermia, like he froze to death literally. While they were waiting for people to come and rescue them, and they were probably in the water for hours, who knows how long. So I kind of thought that too, like when people were saying that, like when I was reading comments. But then like if you really go back and watch the movie, I think there is like a like moment or split second where Jack does, like they both try to get on the thing and it starts like kind of tipping over, or it kind of starts sinking because both of their weight, I don't think both of their weight could handle it. So I think that's why both of them, I think that kind of answers why both of them couldn't be on it at the same time. And then as far as like, why they didn't like why Rose didn't get off and let Jack get on for a little bit. Realistically, if you're in freaking like 20-degree water, you're not going to be able to think straight. Like if it's that cold, you're in pain, because when it's that cold, like things like it starts to sting. It's not just, and then like once you go numb, it's really bad. But it's like you wouldn't be thinking about that. Like you'd be panicking, you know what I mean? You would just be trying to stay alive. So I don't know if I really agree with that. That like she should have gotten off and had him get on it, and then like took, and then realistically, again, I don't think he would have let her do that, because I think he had already made up his mind of like, if it comes down to it, I'm gonna save you. Um, so I think even if she was like, Jack, like get on and I'll get off, like he would have been like, no, like stay on there, like I'm not gonna let you just float in the water, because he loved her that much. I'm sorry, it just makes me so sad. Um, but yeah, so I like I said, I understand like the frustration, because it's like, oh, maybe he could have lived if this would have happened, or if they would have done this differently. But I think, like I said, I think he had already kind of made up his mind of like, I'm willing to sacrifice for you, as long as you promise to go on and live your life and be happy and do all the things that you never got to do. And like I said, that's what she ended up doing. She kept that promise. So that's the I guess like the bittersweet part about it. Um, and then even the way they end the movie, which I think, and again, people have kind of gone back and forth with that as well. If older Rose, if she dies, and then when you see her with Jack again, like, is that them reuniting in the afterlife or like in heaven? Or is that a dream? Is she dreaming? I don't know. I mean, I choose to believe that that's like, that was their way of showing that they do end up back together. It's just once she passes and stuff, and they're, I guess you could say like a heaven or an afterlife or something like that. That's what it felt like to me. But I know some people that thought that maybe she was just dreaming and thinking about him. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I don't know, but yeah, like, but back to the whole debate thing. Like, I don't know. What do you guys think? Because I just feel like that's kind of unfair to be like, well, she should have did this because it's like a girl. Like, if you were freezing to death, you would not be thinking, let me get off of this and get in the water and then get you on. Like, maybe if you had your child with you, then you would probably be like, yeah, I'm gonna let you, be on this thing while I just sit in the water. But yeah, no. I don't think I'm just gonna say I don't think I would be thinking that way because I would just be like thinking I'm cold, I'm cold, I'm cold, and I'm cold. Um, so yeah, I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. But I think too, like him dying and him, especially the way that he died and everything after everything that they had been through, it just really like solidified the movie, I think. Because had he, I mean, of course, I'm like a sucker for happy endings. So part of me is like, oh, I wish they would have, I wish he would have survived and they could have been together and had kids and everything. But I think him dying makes the movie like that much more powerful, and it really just drives home the fact that like so many people actually did die, like people that were really on the Titanic, and not just them too, like so many of the other people like in the film, like some of them people that like jumped off, they was like, I'm not waiting for my death, I'm gonna just jump in the water, which is again really sad to see. And I know for some they kind of really didn't have as much empathy because some of the people were like snotty people because they were so uppity and they thought they were better than other people. And you know even despite that, I still feel like it's still kind of sad to see. So I keep saying it's sad, but it's bittersweet. Like it's a really, really good movie. So watch it if you have not seen it. And if you have seen it, maybe you just haven't like watched it in a while. Like this is your sign to revisit the movie and let me know what you think, and tell me if you have any like new perspectives or if you noticed something that maybe you didn't catch before. Because I tend to do that. Like when I rewatch a movie, I'm like, how did I not notice that before? So just let me know if you notice anything new or if you have any different feelings about it, or if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, anything like that. I would love to hear from you guys. Um, and before I wrap this up, I did just kind of want to mention that my favorite scene in the film, I would be remiss if I did not mention this because I absolutely love this scene. This is my favorite scene in the film. So this is the point where again the ship has already hit the iceberg and they know that the Titanic is going down, and people are trying to get on these rescue boats and everything like that. And remember how earlier I said that Rose's mom, Ruth, was already in one of the boats. It was like her and a bunch of other people, and they were trying to get Rose in there. And Jack even tells her, like, go, like, because they're trying to get all the children and the women in first, and especially the people that have money. So she gets in the boat and they're like pulling this thing to like lower the boat down to go into the water. And at the very last minute, she jumps up and like tries to climb back on the Titanic. And everybody's like, oh my God, like, girl, what are you doing? You're crazy. And she runs, and it's like this whole long, like dramatic scene, but I absolutely love it. And they reunite her and Jack, and they're just both like crying and like super emotional, and he's just like he's kissing her and hugging her, but at the same time he's like, you're so stupid, like what are you doing, like you could have gone and been rescued, like why are you coming back? And she's just like, I couldn't leave without you, like I couldn't just go knowing that you're still on here. And it's just, that is my favorite scene. Like I'm not even kidding. Like absolutely, like even thinking about it right now makes me want to tear. Like that part to me was just so powerful, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like I love this scene so much. I might have to go back and watch just that part to be honest. But anyway, you guys let me know what your favorite scene is and all that good stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed this discussion. And if you like me doing movie discussions and revisiting old movies, then I'll start doing more of those while I wait for my TV shows to come back on. Then we'll kind of get more, we'll get back into the current stuff. But yeah, I'm going to wrap this up. Hopefully, you guys had a good week, and hopefully, you have a good week going forward. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys next weekend. Bye bye.